All right, everyone. We're on lucky episode number 13, not number 3. Excuse me if my throat sounds a little off. I'm recovering a little bit from a little bit of sickness, but we're going to power through it. I'm feeling great today. I am very excited for today's guest. We got Ricky Hall on the podcast, who is the founder of Nutrition HQ. You can see in the background, very cool background, which I love to see. But really interested in terms of Ricky's background. Actually started off similar to me in a very small town. So very excited to kind of start off with that background, then actually transition into the United States Air Force. So very excited to dive into the military background as well. You know, as we both know, there's a lot of veterans in franchising, and franchising is very friendly for veterans. So very excited to kind of dive into that background as well. And then he's also been a franchise owner, which is also a franchisee in the franchising lingo world at 2 different franchising franchises, GNC and Complete Nutrition. So he actually was a franchise owner at 2 different franchises, really scaled a business in both systems, kind of learned the ins and outs. And then in 2015, I believe is the correct year, he founded Nutrition HQ, which is what he's doing today, and we're going to dive into everything there. But Ricky, first off, thank you for your service, and then 2, thank you for your time today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, I like to always kind of start off the podcast, kind of changes off, but kind of starting off in that initial background, kind of those childhood settings. And sometimes we start off in college, but for you, like I said, very similar to me, starting off in a very small town. So I think that's a unique background as well. So can you kind of just walk us through, you're in high school, you're growing up, what did things look like in that small town? Did you have like a bunch of successful people in that small town? What was kind of like the outlook on life in that small town?
Yeah, so the small town, tiny little town in Northeast Missouri, LaBelle, Missouri. And I actually grew up about three plus miles from town on a farm. So my front yard was a bean field. My backyard was a hayfield. And I always laugh because, you know, you get the security questions. What's the name of the street you grew up on or the road? And mine, I just write gravel because it was a gravel road. It wasn't even a paved road. So that was my history growing up. So I grew up on a farm. You know, my grandfather was a farmer. And I consider that the ultimate entrepreneur, you know, because those guys are hands-on, they're innovative, hard workers, you know, they got a lot of grit. And then my mom was an entrepreneur and she had multiple businesses as I grew up. So I was always involved and around businesses. And I always tell the story too, when I was a kid, my dad had this massive garden. I mean, it was huge. And we had so much produce that on the weekends I would throw it in a truck and they would drive me in town and I'd sit at the corner on Saturdays and Sundays and sell produce for a few hours. So that was probably my first entrepreneur, you know, toes in the water of entrepreneurship.
No, that's really powerful. And I love the family aspect and kind of just being surrounded by entrepreneurs. And it's great to see all the success you've had today. Do you kind of attribute some of that success to having business owners around you at such an early age? Did it kind of give you some of the confidence along the way?
Absolutely. And I was in a business owner event one time, YPO, and the guy was like, raise your hand if you were raised by an entrepreneur. And there was probably 500 people in there. And the majority of entrepreneurs raised their hand because they were raised by an entrepreneur. And as I don't know if you know, but my son, you know, he grew up in the back of a vitamin store. He is my top franchisee. So like, yes, that had a huge impact on it. And that goes back. And then I was always extremely competitive. I played so many sports. I lived for Tuesdays and Fridays to play baseball during the summer, you know, and Fridays for football in the fall. So I definitely believe that is where my DNA came from, was growing up. Because, you know, entrepreneurs take crazy chances and crazy risks. You know, I'm always saying an entrepreneur is somebody willing to jump out of a plane and have the faith that they'll find a parachute on the way down, you know? And I think I grew up that way, you know, just seeing that. So it was definitely in my DNA.
That's awesome. And I love to hear that your son's the strongest franchisee in the system too. It's so great to see, you know, the joke is, you know, someone falls into franchising and then once someone does fall in, you know, the generations just continue in their footsteps as well. So it's really powerful to see. So I just wanted to highlight that point. So kind of going back to the small town for a second, what was kind of the outlook for other people? Was it kind of small town people growing up, they're still in that same small town? Did people kind of go the different areas? Was there kind of like big corporations there? Was there kind of opportunity there? What was kind of the typical outlook for most people around you?
It was mostly most of the things there was a major farming community. And
Hmm.
then you had two towns each way, east and west, about 45 minutes, that had factories and stuff like that. So a lot of people that I grew up with, I'd say maybe a third stayed,
Hmm.
you know, and then a lot of people dispersed. But what was interesting, the guys now, kids, I say kids back then, that we all competed against during growing up in baseball, and then later, we were on the same team in high school sports. All
Hmm.
of us left for like 10 years. It was crazy. Like, I left Missouri for almost 10 years. We all like kind of left. The core of us had hung out. And
Yeah.
now the core of us are in St. Louis, which is really interesting. So it's like we all left for 10 years plus, and now we're back together. It's really neat to see that.
Hmm. Yeah, that is interesting how things just happen that way. A lot of times you hear that oftentimes with a lot of relationships growing up. A lot of the family friends that I kind of grew up around, they would date for a couple of years, then they'd kind of split up for a couple of years, and then kind of fate would bring them back together. So it's really
Yep.
powerful that that all kind of happens. And now kind of diving in, kind of growing up in a small town, you mentioned those 10 years, kind of everyone split apart. I know you transitioned into the Air Force after high school. So what was kind of that mindset shift, especially given, your parents were entrepreneurs? So did you have anyone else that was in the military in your family beforehand, or what was kind of the thought, just the decision-making process there?
My grandfather was in the military. He was drafted, but my
Hmm.
brother-in-law was in the Air Force. But ever since I was probably in junior high, for some reason, I was like, I want to go to the Air Force. I want to go to the Air Force. And that's my mindset. Once I make my mind up, it's over.
Hmm.
And it was the best thing I did, because I was ready to go make money. I wanted to make money. I
Yeah.
wanted to get out of Missouri. I knew I did not want to stay in that hometown. I knew I wanted to venture out. I'm an adventure type person. So that's what took me into the Air Force. Now, I
Hmm.
did 6 years in the Air Force, but then that entrepreneur blood kicked in, and you can't be an entrepreneur in the military.
Hmm.
You're still following like guidelines and protocol and stuff like that. And I was ready to spread my wings. I was ready to go. So that's why I got out after 6 years. It was an amazing 6 years, because I can look back at it now like, you grow up. They make you grow up. You're going to grow up when you're in the military, and you're going to be challenged. I mean, I've been on
Yeah.
planes a couple times where you didn't know where you were going to. You were in flight, so show up to work, be like, hey, we need 6 guys to go to an undisclosed location, and there's about six to 10 of us that hung out. We always volunteered. We always went. So
Hmm.
that was what it taught me: leadership. It taught me a mission, a drive. So that was really the best that came out of that. How to lead people. I started leading people at a very, very young age.
Hmm. Yeah, it's really powerful. And I know kind of just looking into your background, you were stationed, warm places like Texas and cold places like Alaska. So I just can't even imagine, the podcast is called Conquer the Mind. So can you kind of speak on the mindset of kind of going through all those different places and just the mental toughness that it required, especially going from high school? I'm just thinking about myself at, 14, 15, 16 years old into immediately growing up like that, just like the mindset shift, and I'm sure it's played a strong role into who you are today.
It did. And, like, I go back and I look at it, I'm like, I cannot believe I always said yes, but you're so young. And I was always just so hungry. And I was always wanted adventure. I wanted to go somewhere different. I wanted to try something different. So that was more the mindset there. The
Hmm.
mental toughness just naturally came as you got older and stuff like that, which has made it much better in business to be mentally tough, because
Yeah.
in 2014, when I made a massive change in my business, I was talking to one of my guys who's a franchisee now, and I said, in 2014, that might have been the roughest in my life as an adult. And he goes, really? And I said, yeah. He goes, you would never know. You would never know you were carrying that burden with you. I said, yeah, I was being challenged. I was being, it took a lot to get through it. It's one of those things where you get up and you grind through the day and you'd be like, oh, I made it another day. I just need to get a little bit of sleep and go fight the battle again tomorrow.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, I think that's really powerful, especially as we kind of talk about a lot of veterans in franchising, maybe even thinking about that, kind of trying to navigate that potential transition. One thing I want to kind of dive into real quick in your military experience, as I was kind of diving into your background a bit before we dive into kind of that transition out of the military. I know you kind of had this kind of encounter with one of your officers in Kansas, I believe, where you were kind of talking about fitness and you said you can probably tell the story a lot better than me, but you're laughing, so maybe you want to kind of dive into that story a little bit. But I think as I kind of talk about the power of conquer the mind and the mindset, I think that was like your true calling in that moment. I think that would be a really powerful kind of story for you to kind of talk about.
It was, and I won a lot of awards. I won Airman of the Year when I was in Alaska, and then I made rank fairly fast.
Mhm.
And I was literally sitting at work, and I was leading a crew, a midship crew, and the gentleman came in and was busting my chops because I wasn't reading Air Force regulation. And I was reading, I still have the book, Josh. I still have the book. And I literally picked it up and I was like, this is my future. And it was the encyclopedia of bodybuilding. It talked about lifting, nutrition. I had fallen in love with manipulating the body with diet and exercise. So it definitely was my true calling. And that's when I knew it was time to move on, And he didn't take it in a bad way. He just kind of was like, I guess
Yeah.
this, and I would love to go back and talk to him like, do you remember that day? And just say like, well, you said it, you called it. That was going to be your future.
Hmm. No, that would be a really powerful conversation to have too. And that's just such a powerful moment. And I kind of read about how there's always kind of just a couple of moments in our lives that really define really who we become. And that just sounds like such a defining moment. And for a lot of people, and I think kind of diving into the podcast, a lot of people are trying to find that passion, what that why is, and what that motivation is. And for you to kind of have that courage to say that, in a military environment specifically, that takes a lot of courage. So
Yeah.
what was it how did you like find your mission? How did you find your calling? What was it that you were like so set that like that it was your calling?
I had just came off the tour in Alaska, and anybody ever wants to see where I was in Alaska, just Google Shimmy, Alaska. It's out on the tail of the Aleutian Islands. There's not a lot going on out there. And I had really been reading nutrition books, and
Yeah.
I'm a guy that goes into the gym. If I see somebody doing something and they've got amazing abs or they got amazing arms, I'm going over to ask them why. What are they doing? How come they did it? Why is it movement like this? Why is it movement like that? What are you doing about your diet? I was always asking lots of questions. And I even did that when I moved out to New Jersey from Kansas to New Jersey and was working in a gym. One of the top trainers in there, I probably drove her nuts because I was always just quizzing her. Why this? Why that?
Yeah.
And when I was in Alaska, I started training a couple people and writing nutrition plans. And
Mhm.
I'm seeing these people's change. And I'm like,
Yeah.
man, maybe I've got a gift here. And it what does they call it? Accomplishment feedback, just a little bit of accomplishment feedback. And I was like, I think I can do this. And I had a thirst for learning. I could not learn enough about nutrition and supplementation and working out.
Mhm.
Josh, always thought I'd be a gym owner. I didn't think I'd be a vitamin supplement guy. I thought I'd own a gym.
Mhm. No, it's really powerful. And, you didn't necessarily, a lot of people, you didn't know you were going to be, the founder of Nutrition HQ, 10, 20 years ago, but you kind of knew what you were passionate about. You kept just trying things and then it really brought you to where you are today. So I think that's a really valuable lesson. And one thing, as you're kind of, you're in the military, you find your passion. And a lot of people, they don't find that passion, but you were very fortunate you found that passion. What was that transition like in those couple months after you left the military? I understand you were a personal trainer. So what was kind of the daily life like after the military? And were there any kind of challenges as you were making that transition?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, money. You went from a
Mhm.
steady paycheck the first and the 15th of every month. I was making good money. I made my rank, but I literally loaded everything in a U-Haul and drove out to New Jersey and moved to New Jersey. And my mindset, I only would only go put an application in at a gym. I was only putting applications in at a gym. I was like, I want to learn the gym business. So that
Yeah.
was my mindset. Going back to when I said I was a little kid, I was like, I want to do the Air Force. I had made my mind up. This was my new career, and that's what
Yeah.
got me there. And as an entrepreneur and a risk taker, you've got to be persistent. You got a lot of no's coming at you. That's not going to work. No,
Yeah.
you'll never be able to do that. And you gotta keep your focus, and you got to be persistent. And Josh, what I do in all my stores, I have a rhinoceros.
Mm.
And it symbolizes when times get tough, you got to have thick skin like a rhino. You got to keep your head down, and you got to have horrible vision, because you just don't want to see what's going down the side of you. You got to stay tunnel vision on your drive, on your mission, on your focus.
Mm. No, I really like that. I'm gonna have to write that one down for future notes.
Yeah.
I like the combination of all three of those, and it's so true as an entrepreneur. It really is just you have that vision, and there's all these different things. You're gonna face all these different obstacles, of course, but you have that vision. You just keep going, and you keep going, and you keep going. But I think that's really powerful. And then you were kind of a personal trainer. You're kind of starting to make these fitness programs for other people, from what I understand. And what I think is really interesting as well is not only did you kind of have that mission, that calling, but you immediately wanted to start helping other people as well. It wasn't just about your own fitness journey, but you're crafting these plans for other people. Like you mentioned, you're looking at people with the big arms, the abs, and you're trying to figure out different ways to craft that into these plans. What was it like specifically? Were you trying to really just craft like this business at the time? Or what was it so passionate about kind of crafting these plans for other people as well?
I think it kind of goes well. It's funny because it's one of our core values. It's genuinely care for others, and wanting to help people. I did a prospect call with I believe she'll be a future franchisee one day. And I asked her why she wanted to own a nutrition HQ. And she goes, I love helping people. And
Mm.
anybody that visits our stores, you're going to see that with all of our consultants and our franchisees. They genuinely care for others. And I think that's what it was. And I was just loving working at a gym. But on top of that, too, I took a full-time construction job at the same time. So I was hustling. Yeah. And that's what that construction job I did for over a year literally was the seed money to start my very first store. So, like, I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I was moving forward, and that's all that mattered.
Yeah. No, that's a really powerful story and a good lesson for a lot of people. That's the power of really franchising, where someone that has already gone through the hardship, they've gone through the ins and out, so that you can hedge your risk, you can validate it with that system, that opportunity where no one's ever asking you to make that decision on day one or even day 30. It really is that full education process where you get to meet with people like yourself that have put in the hardship, have put in tremendous risk, put in those late nights, those late hours, so that you can help these other people succeed. So I think that's really powerful. And obviously it kind of started off, you were an actual franchise owner at another nutrition franchise. So how did that go about? You're a personal trainer, you're crafting these plans for other people. How did you end up, falling into franchising? Did you have a broker at the time? Were you just looking at internet ads? How did everything come about?
This is a true story, Josh. So I'm living in New Jersey, and one of my best friends still lives out there, Jim Lavender. And we worked at the gym together. He was a school teacher. I was working at the gym. He was a full-time school teacher, and we worked at the gym part-time. So I was full-time construction and worked at the gym part-time.
Mm.
And Jim's sister was working for one of our friends who was a GNC franchisee. And this is the true story that got me into franchising. And at the same time, I'm going to GNC once a month to get my supplements. And I catch myself in there 3 to 4 hours training the staff on supplementation.
Yeah.
And so we're sitting there, and she literally goes, Jim, you and Ricky need to look at doing one of these franchises. Steve is killing it, and he's an idiot. Now, I cleaned that up, but that's what was said. And right then, I filled out a questionnaire or something with GNC and sent it in and started the interview process. And back then it wasn't an FDD, it was a UFOC, Uniform Franchise, blah, blah, blah. Everybody that's been in franchising knows what a UFOC is. And that thing could have told me in there on every page, you're dumb if you open up a franchise. I was still opening a GNC. I'd made my mind up. I was like, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
That's how I got into franchising, is just because a friend of ours from the gym was doing a GNC and doing really well.
Yeah, that's so funny. You know, we already kind of talked about falling into franchising, and it really is just that opportunity where you can combine what you're already passionate about, those interests, what those strengths are particularly, and then really align that with the proper business opportunity where I would say combining the passion with the profits really kind of make the best of both worlds, I would say. But I think what's also important is that while you were at GNC, not only were you a single franchise owner, but you were a multi-unit franchise owner and really scaled that business pretty successfully, which, you know, a lot of people are scared to really kind of make that single unit operation, but you kind of made that risk, and then you were able to scale that operation. Can you talk someone through what it took to actually scale that business and what it was like from that first store to get that to, you know, 5 stores? What did that look like?
Yeah, so it took me about 2 to 3 years to really find my way into it,
Yeah.
and 9/11 happened a year and a half after I opened up, and I thought I was going to lose everything, you
Hmm.
know. And I remember my mom was like, "I know things are tough. If you need to borrow some money, let me know." And I was like, "I don't think money's going to solve this problem. I got to figure the business model out." And that's when I really just I had no choice. You just have to figure it out. And then I did.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, wow, now I put my own systems and
Hmm.
my processes in that complemented the systems and processes I learned. And then I put in my training programs and found my vendors that complement the products. And we just saw our sales take off. At
Yeah.
that point, there was a lot of franchisees struggling. And I remember talking to one of my field coaches, and he's like, you should look at scaling. He goes, there's a couple stores in the St. Louis market. I think they
Yeah.
would sell. And that's where it went from there. And then I brought on a business partner. We had the same vision. I brought him on as a 30% business partner. And we just started buying out struggling stores. And
Yeah.
then 30 days to 60 days, we had them profitable, just by putting our systems, processes, and people in place.
Yeah.
And oh, what is it? The Profit by Marcus Lemonis. Always like his 3 Ps: people, product, and processes.
Mm.
And that's what we were doing. We were putting the processes in place, we were putting the product in place, and we were hiring the right people, to run our store, run the stores. And we would have customers come in, like, we drive past 5 GNCs to shop with you guys. And when I sold in 2010, I had 5 locations. And
Yeah.
that's what I just said. I didn't, back to my bullheadedness. I literally said, there was like, I had 10 good years at GNC. I was like, do I want to do this for another 10? And I was like, no, time to sell. And that
Yeah.
was it. And I sold.
Huh. And one powerful thing that I want to kind of bring up before we move on past GNC that I think is really interesting is that not only did you have the confidence to scale that business, but you were buying like failing businesses and turning that around to be successful. So when people think about a failing franchise, can you tell someone or walk us through it, at least in those cases, why was the franchise failing? And then what did it take for someone to turn it around? And should someone be scared when it comes down to a resale opportunity, or what are some things to kind of think about?
Yeah, I think so we had figured out our systems and our processes and
Yeah.
figured out a little bit of marketing. That's what was successful. And these other franchisees weren't wanting to put those systems in place, and we knew they were working. So that's what allowed me. I could literally walk in and I could look at the number of customers they had a day, their average sale, and their margin.
Hmm.
And if those numbers hit mine, I knew by putting my processes in place, my average sale would probably go up 25%. My margin would go up 5 to 6%. And the people were already coming through the door. So we knew how to fix it. And I even bought a failing corporate store. And the first year I owned it from corporate,
Yeah.
my first year I owned it, our sales beat their previous year by 92%.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So so resales, do not be scared of them. Do your homework, do
Hmm.
your due diligence. You got to really do your homework. I had just figured out a system that I knew I could plug and play. And that's franchising, plug and play. When these people will talk about, oh, the initial franchise fee and the royalties, I'm like, yeah, that initial franchise fee and that royalty is giving you a system. Plus, that's the stupid tax that franchisers paid trying to figure it out. So you can plug and play just like that with a franchise.
Hmm.
And a lot of times a family franchise store, maybe they're not following the brand strategy, and that's it. And that could be it too. You need to check yourself sometimes. Are you doing it the right way?
Yeah, no, I think it's really powerful. And as you're kind of going through the decision-making process, all these different things to evaluate, I think is really powerful. And as you were at GNC, you eventually kind of moved on to a complete nutrition opportunity. And you actually kind of did a similar thing where you scaled businesses there as well. And as people kind of think about business ownership, and a lot of people come from corporate America, they want to kind of hedge their risk to a certain extent. They may see, you're going to a different business, maybe you're taking all these different risks and that may scare them. How does someone kind of walk themselves through kind of like the real education process? And would you describe, or I guess how I'm trying to phrase this, would you describe those two opportunities as successes? Did you have an exit strategy in both opportunities? Were you kind of learning different skills? How would you relate your time as a business owner? And although maybe it wasn't a 20-year thing, compared to, being in corporate America and maybe going to a different job, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the one thing you got to do is you got to trust the franchise. You got to trust their system and their processes. And the last thing you want to do is go into a franchise and think you're going to change the business model. When I talk to a lot of people are like, well, you're an emerging brand. I said, I'm an emerging brand with franchising, yes, but I've got 23 years experience of brick and mortar selling vitamins, so that's the main thing. And then one other thing is, don't try to scale too soon. Learn that business inside and out before you start scaling. Like right now, I won't let a franchisee scale until their store's doing north of 750,000 a year annually. They need to know how to run that one store before they take a bite into another one, and even though you're following the systems and processes of the franchise, you still got to find your own systems and processes that complement that.
Yeah, no, I think that's really powerful, and something I was reading about as well, kind of just trying to find that balance with being able to actually scale to multi-units, with being able to actually handle it. And a lot of business owners, as they do get onto that second, third, fourth year, trying to make it more absentee to a certain extent. But if you want multi-unit, you can't be absentee. As a business owner, you got to be hands-on if you really want that business to grow and scale. So all these different things I think are really important to consider. And for someone that did kind of go through these different opportunities, what are kind of the big things that you would tell someone as they are evaluating different opportunities? You took over a corporate store and were able to kind of turn that around. So as someone does go through that education process, I know you kind of just went through with GNC and we're really kind of all in. What would you kind of tell someone that is kind of evaluating all these different opportunities?
Definitely talk to franchisees, of that brand or even other brands. You definitely want to understand how franchisees are wired. Don't be afraid to. LinkedIn is a great resource for learning more about franchising. Surround yourself with franchise minds. Don't be, try to talk to franchisors. Do at least listen to podcasts like this. But something I always tell people to do is you got to ask questions, and you don't have to go it alone. And even when you have a great business idea, and we'll just hear, if you're a franchisee and you're ready to scale, or you're second guessing something you're getting ready to make, but just pick the phone up and talk to another franchisee. That you're cheating yourself if you do not ask for help. You are losing out so much. In school, if you did that, if I tapped you on the shoulder, it's like, hey, what do you got for number 5? That's cheating. But in business, if you're not asking these questions and you're not talking to fellow franchisees or fellow business owners, get into peer groups, look into entrepreneurs organizations and things like that. You've got to surround yourself with people that are wired that way.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And really just the motto of being in business by yourself, but not for yourself. But really just having the systems in place, the resources in place. And I think it's just really powerful as you are going through that education process, validating it with other franchise owners and really seeing, does that align with what your potential day in the life could look like? Because as you mentioned, they are your lifeline. The franchisees, the franchisors, those are the people you're going to be talking to. The franchisees, especially, they've gone through the day in the life, they go through it, they've seen the same challenges, they can help you get through those speed bumps. And it's just so powerful in franchising, where you have someone like yourself that's gone through the troubles, developed the systems, been able to validate the opportunity, then you can take that next step. So can you kind of dive us into, obviously it took a significant amount of risk for you to, leave as a franchise owner to start your own system. What kind of gave you the confidence? What were you kind of seeing in the industry? What did the industry look like at the time? And then what was it like as you started Nutrition HQ in 2015?
It was tough. It was tough, but we knew we didn't have the right products on the shelf. And we knew we needed to find our way, getting the right products in the shelf. We knew we needed to, I'm not gonna say bend the rules, but take some more chances to test some stuff, just to not worry about how much can I sell to one customer as much as how many customers can I get in the door a day? And that was the mindset. That's where we started to change the business model to, like, how do we call it door swings? How do we make that door swing all day?
Yeah.
And I had a franchisee in for training, and they were standing there, and there's customers coming in the front door and FedEx is coming in the back door. And I'm like, that's a door swing. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, that's a door swing. That FedEx coming in the back door with inventory is a door swing that's causing the front door to open. And that's the mindset we changed. And then, we felt like we had a really strong name. Everybody bought into the Nutrition HQ name. And that had a lot to do with it too. And then we literally went out and said, okay, we're going to do everything we can to create a door swing that is health and wellness, Inbody scans, healthy meals, nutrition coaching. I mean, we want to say, when we say Nutrition HQ, we are everything HQ. Yeah. And that's where our mindset has been. And it was funny, I have an employee, or he's not my employee, he's my son's employee. He came from a nutrition concept, and he goes, we were in a meeting one day and they were talking about how to stop you guys. And he goes, I raised my hands like, you're not going to stop HQ. He goes, these guys are doing everything and we can't, we're limited. And now he's one of our top consultants.
That's awesome. I love to see that. And, I was kind of reading a lot about your story prior to this, and, you do a really good job on social media as well, as you kind of talk about, educating yourself on franchising. You have an awesome YouTube channel, literally giving free value to people, talking them through all the different items in FDD and walking them through that process. So if anyone's interested, we'll definitely put that in the link as well. And I think that's just something that's so important as you are evaluating different franchise opportunities. I say corporate leadership, but I guess franchisor leadership. But either way, really the executive leadership, the people at the top, how much passion, how much skin do they have in the game? And, it's very evident, you've gone through the ins and outs, you've gone through the struggles, and, you don't have to make these YouTube videos for people, but, it's very clear that you want to do this and you want to help other people. And, I was even watching one of your YouTube videos where you were reflecting on, 7 years of Nutrition HQ, and you're talking about you literally had to sell the house and you're literally facing so many different obstacles. So literally, when you talk about someone that's passionate about what he's doing, someone that really knows his why and is really there to help you as a franchise owner, I think that's just so powerful. So, I think that's just really interesting as you are just evaluating these opportunities, just looking at the people at the top, what their industry experience looks like, and, how passionate they are and how hands-on they will eventually be if you were to become a franchise owner. So with that being said, Ricky, you've got the Nutrition HQ background going. For someone that maybe knows nothing about Nutrition HQ, can you kind of walk someone through what is Nutrition HQ? Someone walks in the store, what's going to happen?
Yeah, so we call it a 7-step selling process. But what's going to happen is, and I've had so many people come to our stores and be like, we've been to nutrition stores all over the country. This is just a different experience. So our consultants and our franchisees, they're engaged. They're not behind the counter mad because somebody walked through the door. They're going to walk you through, greeting you from when you walk in the door, and then asking, what brought you in? What are you looking for? How'd you hear about us? And then we just start building a relationship. You build a rapport. You're building a friendship. You're building, you're getting that bond. And I had a lady one time, I set her on the program, and it was an expensive ticket, and it was like $200 and some. And she goes, "You're just selling this to me for your commission." And I was like, "Hold on, back up. This is what we walked through. This is what I believe you need. If you want to take it down and, to where you feel more comfortable, let's do that." I said, "Because if I sell this to you once, I failed. But if I see you 10 times a year, you're successful and I'm successful." So you're going to see that engagement in the store that people are blown away by when they come in the store. And we're going to educate, we're going to educate you on the process. We are looking for a solution. One of our things we say is like, we are solution focused. We are going to get you going in the right direction. And maybe we don't have what you need, but maybe we have a personal trainer or a dietitian we can hand you off to, or a chiropractor, something like that. So that's the whole difference. Is we're not selling for corporate's needs, we're selling for the customer's needs. And that's the key. Is that's why I left my other franchise. Like, I can't take care of my customer like I believe I need to be taking care of them. And that is the difference. Like, I cannot believe the compliments we get, like, "Oh my gosh, your product selection is amazing. The knowledge of your staff and the engagement is unbelievable." Like, we just want to be part of that. And we are huge in our communities. We are big in the communities. I mean, my son just got recognized as one of the top 20 influential people in his town under 40. So, I mean, that's part of it. You got to be willing to give back. You got to be willing to educate. And you got to be able to, what is it? It was one of my favorite quotes. "When you care more about the customer than the sell, you'll sell more." And that is our motto.
Yeah, no, that's really powerful. All those things that you mentioned, and I think it's really helpful for the viewers to get that better understanding. And I know you also have some sort of like Inbody Machine as well that kind of helps clients as well. Could you kind of talk about that, and what does the typical client look like that's walking through a Nutrition HQ?
I'll hit the clients first. We're probably 50-50 male, female.
Okay.
But we were seeing young athletes, coming in with their parents, because their parents have grown up with supplements now,
Yeah.
And so we're seeing young athletes, male and female. We're seeing elderly people that are in their 80s, 90s that come in and get their vitamin E and their glucosamine chondroitin. So we're seeing a wide range of people. And I've said this multiple times, is it's neat to see one of my consultants maybe helping a bodybuilder, get his protein, or doing this. And then an hour later, he's helping a lady who's going through hot flashes. So like, we're seeing everything. And that is another thing that separates us, is that ability to do that. And then our Inbody Machine, Tyler, my son's like, "I'm going to bring it in. I want to test it." And we had everybody telling us it's a waste of money. Don't bring it in. It doesn't work in the nutrition stores.
Yeah.
And we brought it in and we started using it. We allow our customers one free scan a month. All they have to do is be a member of our loyalty program. Our loyalty program is free. You earn points and you get cash rewards. And then with that Inbody scan in 15 seconds, we know everything going on in your body. We know your weight. We know your muscle mass. We know how much your right arm, your left arm, your right leg, your left leg weighs. And then we can do more coaching with that. So somebody comes in, is like, "I've been on this program 6 weeks and I haven't lost a pound." We throw them on the Inbody, like, "You've lost 3 pounds of fat and gained 3 pounds of muscle. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing. How do the clothes fit?" "Oh, they fit looser, but I just thought it was in my head." "Nope, stay the course." And that's what helps. We want to be able to provide another service that nobody else in our market is doing. And I know of other stores that do it, and you go in to get a scan and the staff will roll their eyes like, "I don't have time for this scan." It's 15 seconds,
No,
And
it's
that's it. Yeah, that's the machine. It's part of my item 7. So anybody doesn't know what item 7 is. Item 7 of the FDD walks you through what you're going to be spending to get your franchise open. And it is part of our item 7. That's how passionate we are about it.
No, that's awesome. And you mentioned free. We'll have to get myself signed up after this, and we'll have to get a Nutrition HQ down in Miami as well. But I love that. And that's what I hear from a lot of candidates, is combining the passion with the profit that we talked about earlier, and being able to make a difference in people's lives and that wide range of people. You're not locked into, just business to business, just B2C, for example. You have males, females, wide range of ages as well. So I think that's really interesting. And one thing that's very clear in terms of, you've been at different franchises and something that's really differentiated is really your consultative approach as franchise owners and really being very personalized. Can you talk about, why is that so important at Nutrition HQ? Why is that so important to you? And, you were in the industry for a while, just kind of walk us through what differentiates that.
Well, it goes back to taking care of the customer's needs first. What I had one of my closest business friends, we probably talk twice a week. He came in town. He goes, I want to come see what you're doing.
Yeah.
And he was watching my son work, and he nudged me. He goes, you know why he's so successful? And I was like, why? What are you saying? He goes, he doesn't care about the money. He cares about the customer and the community. So having that, when you genuinely want to help people, you're going to take that consultative approach. Nobody wants to be rushed in or rushed out. Vitamins and supplements aren't cheap. So we got to provide a service that nobody else is willing to provide. And we not only want to sell you the product, we want the product to work. We want you to be successful on it. Your success is a win for us. And that's why we're so adamant about the consultation approach. And you leave with a coaching sheet on how to take your stuff. Within a week of being a new customer, you're going to get a handwritten thank you card. You would not believe the people that will post stuff like, nobody does this anymore. You actually wrote us a handwritten thank you card.
No, it's really powerful. And one thing I think a lot of people start to think about, with the online, the brick and mortar, the tough question with, Amazon and, online and, do you guys have some sort of like virtual store, online store, e-commerce option? And, can you talk to us about like the demographics of, someone ordering supplements online versus maybe a brick and mortar option, or what does kind of the industry outlook look like?
So I got this stat last month. 75% of vitamins and supplements are being purchased at brick and mortar. So that's something to really, and we want to make sure that we are providing that service again, consultation, great products, the right people, and that keeps them coming back. Online, I have a private label company too that supplies products to my franchisees. They're not obligated to buy it. It's there for them. So I do have my private label website, but each franchisee gets their own e-com platform that mimics their inventory. So like if you look behind me and you see the inventory there, most of that inventory that's in that store can be found on their e-com site. So they can ship locally. Okay. And that's how we handle e-com. So I don't have a corporate e-com site that competes with my franchisees.
Okay. No, that's awesome. I think that gives them a really cool option to kind of capitalize on both worlds. And that 75% number, that's something I definitely would not have guessed. I maybe would have guessed maybe 25%. So I think that's really powerful for someone potentially, considering that as well.
And here's the number. It's a $59 billion business, and 75% of the products are being bought at a brick and mortar store.
Yeah, no, it's just so powerful. And really the way to be successful in business is finding, that niche in the market and really finding the way to capitalize on it. And, 75% of people want their supplements in person, and, you get that consultative approach, that personalized approach. So I think that kind of leads us into, the ideal candidate a little bit with, as you do start to scale Nutrition HQ, you bring on new franchise owners. What are you kind of looking for in that ideal franchise owner? Because obviously it's very obvious how passionate you are about it. So it is that two-way interview process. What are you looking for in that next potential Nutrition HQ franchisee?
Yeah, they definitely want to be passionate about health and wellness and supplementation. A lot of, most of my franchisees now have some sort of a certification through nutrition or personal training and stuff like that. It's not necessary. Okay. But they already have that passion to help people, and this just complements what they're doing. That's what made me get into it. They're competitive, they got a little bit of business acumen. The military's obviously, military people are great because they've been active and they've had to exercise while they're in the military. A lot of them take supplementation. They already learn processes and systems. They're mission driven, and that's pretty much it. Passion for health and wellness, competitive, business acumen, and just driven for success.
No, that's really awesome. And, given your military background, I think it'd be helpful for maybe potential veterans that are considering the opportunity. They're trying to evaluate, their strengths, their weaknesses, and trying to align that with the best opportunity. Can you talk about some of the unique advantages of being a veteran and kind of the skills you bring as a potential franchise owner, and how you don't necessarily need to be the entrepreneur like yourself that, sold their house and had to take these tremendous risks throughout their whole life. But it really is just that opportunity to capitalize on things you're already really good at.
Yeah, so when I left the military, Josh, there weren't a lot of programs out there for people transitioning. It's like, all right, thanks for your service, good luck, and you kind of had to go find your way. Now there's a lot of different programs out there to walk veterans through it. There's VetFran that caters to veterans. With me having, I think I bring a uniqueness. I'm going to say this in an egotistical way, but I knew what it was like to transition from the military, and transitioning from the military into a franchise only makes sense if you're wanting to get into business, because they go hand in hand. And we interviewed a guy one time, and he goes, "Do you know what the biggest franchise is in the world?" And we're like, Subway, it's what everybody says. He goes, the military. The military is a franchise. It's systems and processes. And that's what makes it so easy. And then with me being a veteran and a past franchisee, oh my gosh, I can bring a lot more to the table with that coaching and, hey, this is what you're going to see. This is what to expect. And I think that is the best thing. That's the most valuable thing with it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so powerful where you just have that support, those systems in place. So I guess I would think, as a veteran trying to maybe consider opportunities, what was it like as the first couple months as, a franchise owner? What can someone kind of expect? What does it kind of look like in terms of the support that someone could expect?
Yeah, like with me an emerging brand, obviously there's a lot of support there with me and my son. And actually Jeremy, my other franchisee, is very supportive. And my vendors, like we've got such great relationships with our vendors, like how they're there to support. They come visit the stores. They do training sessions at the store. There's going to be a lot of touch points at the very beginning,
Yeah.
because I'm going to be there, not holding your hand. At some point, you got to jump in the water, but to be there. But we also do every month, we do what we call a huddle, and all of our franchisees are on there. So they're sharing what's working, what they're struggling with. Hey, what are you doing for this situation? And when I did a call Saturday with a prospect, and I said, as soon as you sign a franchise agreement, you're joining our huddles. Even if your store's not open, I want you to already hear what's going on. I want you to already be part of Nutrition HQ's culture and family. So that way, when you open up your doors, we're off and running. And that's a big thing. And being in that community. So I send every franchisee that signs a franchise agreement. This may be a little, I don't know what you would say, but I give them a door clicker. Say Nutrition HQ to 100 different people a day. Talk about Nutrition HQ to 100 different people and get out in that community to bring awareness to that. But you're going to be grinding. You're going to be working. It's not for the faint-hearted. You're going to be hustling. You get up every morning, you're going to have to work on the hustle muscle.
Yeah. So what does kind of that day in the life look like for a franchise owner and also how many clients do they kind of need going through the doors each day to really kind of be profitable, or what does kind of the typical franchise owner kind of look like?
Yep. So the franchise owner, his day-to-day is going to basically be inventory management, people management, making sure your store is staffed, doing inventory, getting orders in, making sure your shelves are stocked, doing purchase orders, receiving purchase orders. Our POS system syncs with QuickBooks, and then our bookkeeping company takes it from there. So we try to take a lot of that out of it to where they can actually focus on the business and not all the back office stuff. There's always going to be a little bit of back office stuff in that area, but your biggest thing you're managing is your staff and your inventory.
Okay.
And that's where, like with me, like owning multiple units, of being a multi-unit franchisee, I understand inventory management. That's probably one of my strongest skill suits is like, hey, I've been to your store now 4 times, Joe, and I've seen the same 4 tubs of protein on the bottom shelf. Let's do a buy one, get one free, get them out of there, turn that dead inventory into inventory you can turn and make money on. That's the main thing is, maintaining your inventory. And then some marketing stuff, some social media, things like that. But, if you're not a social media person, I've partnered with a group that can take that off your hands, so that like you don't have to mess with it. Social media it's the 800-pound gorilla, just like Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah. It changes by the day, if not the second.
Yep.
But yeah, it's so powerful in franchising. You have the industry experts, the national relationships, the vendors to be the best in all these different industries. So rather than trying to go out by yourself, being a business owner, it's impossible to try to keep up with all the different trends and this and that. So I think that's just really powerful. And one of the things that I think was interesting that you mentioned in one of your YouTube videos that I think is important for candidates as they do go through the education process, they're trying to figure out what opportunity is for them, is the importance of site visits for the franchisor. And doesn't necessarily need to be, the CEO if it is, this huge organization, but the idea that franchisors, people of, the corporate, the executive leadership are actually going to go in person, the operations team to your store, if it's brick and mortar, to actually help you, go through those problems. And not only maybe that first week, but maybe, a month after, or maybe 6 months after, if you have those issues. So can you speak on just the importance of that and kind of something to kind of think about as you go through that discovery process?
Yeah. So site visits are huge. They really are. So like, was it 2 weeks ago? It was Thanksgiving, or coming up on 2 weeks in. We do a big Black Friday event. So literally got up Friday morning, drove 45 minutes to my son's store, visited there, got out of the way. It's just busy, just be in there, take some pictures, do some social media, and then jumped in and drove 6 hours to Mishawaka, Indiana, where Notre Dame is, and visited Jeremy's store that night. Went in and, they had their best day ever. So we celebrated the win. And I was like, I'll be back tomorrow and we'll go through what I call active coaching. And then I go in and we discuss what's working, what's not working, what's holding you back, what can I help with today? And then we just brainstorm. And I don't rush in a store and rush out. I mean, I think I got to Jeremy's store Saturday at 9:30 and I left at 4:30 or 5. I mean, we spent the whole day together, seeing him interact with customers, don't forget to ask him, are you taking a good multivitamin? Don't be afraid to say, hey, do you want to book an Inbody scan? Like, a lot of these franchisees or business owners can get in their own way, so coming in with a fresh set of eyes, and don't come in there, and you've heard Seagull management, right? Don't fly in there and crap all over and then leave, go in and be in there to help them. Their success is your success. And that's the biggest thing franchisors make a mistake is they think their franchisees are nothing but glorified managers. They're not. They're humans. They're entrepreneurs. They're hustlers. They're business owners. So go in there with the mindset to help them, just like you would want help if you were running a business.
Yeah, no, it's powerful. And, that's why it really is that two-way interview process. Franchisors need franchisees just as much as franchisees need franchisors. And there's just so much alignment. And, I think it's really powerful as someone that was a franchisee for so long, scaled businesses, knows what that day in the life looks like, saw the issues, saw the challenges, and was able to present this opportunity with Nutrition HQ. And now he's on the franchisor side, but totally understands the day in the life of a franchisee. And as we just mentioned, he'll actually be there at your store, boots on the ground, helping you figure out those challenges. And, he's risked a lot. He's put a lot of skin in the game. So he's very clear. He's very passionate about what he does. And Ricky, I'm very grateful for your hour today. It's been awesome. And I'm going to ask one more question as we kind of wrap down, and kind of relating, you have the Inbody Machine at Nutrition HQ that allows you to, track tangible results. You can come into the store, you can see, am I more happy with my results? Am I looking more fit? What do I need to do to kind of redirect those programs? And kind of tying that into the theme of the podcast is really kind of, setting these goals, the importance of mindset and really taking action. And I think you hit on a lot of really strong points today, but I'm sure maybe not. Just tell me no if not, but I'm guessing goals probably played a strong role in your life. And although it was not like some linear direction, like we mentioned earlier, where you were like, I'm going to be the founder of Nutrition HQ, but I'm sure you had these goals. So like, I'm going to be a personal trainer. I'm going to do this. And how you were able to kind of navigate the journey is a lot of people, as we kind of talk about, trying to find that passion, that why, you just kind of got to go sometimes, and then you'll kind of figure out the rest.
You do, but I tell you something that helped me a lot and it was in 2014, 2015, was reading the book Traction by Gino Wickman, EOS, the Entrepreneur's Operating System, helped me a lot with where I wanted to be in. Yep, you got it. That's it. Everybody should have that book on their desk. I give that to all my franchise prospects when they come to Discovery Day.
Yeah.
I give them Traction and I give them the Wealthy Franchisee, because you're going to need traction. Because if you're a true entrepreneur, you're all over the place and you have a hard time staying focused. And all you need to worry about right now, you're going to write out your 10-year goal, your 3-year, your 1 year. And all you're worrying about right now is what you're working on this quarter. So that helped me a lot. And then I always give the book The Wealthy Franchisee as well, because if you're not buying my franchise and you buy a franchise, franchise is a franchise. You need this book. But that's the main thing is, and yeah, I have goals, of course, where I want to be and things like that. But like, I'm sitting at my desk now in St. Louis, and right in front of me says 2030-100. That means by 2030, I want 100 franchise stores open.
Yeah.
So I am driven by a goal. You know, I'm a numbers guy. Like I love, you know, yesterday or on the 1st, I'm texting the guys, what's your goal for this month? You know, so that way we all stay on the same page. We're all, you know, I've had this conversation with people in franchise. I'm like, think of it, use a military analogy. You're in this trench and you're in the trench with your franchisee, and your goal is to get up to the next trench together and the next and the next. It's not, I'm in this trench here and you're in that trench there and we're shooting at each other. We're in the same trench, you know.
Yeah.
I have a different business model than you do as a franchisor. You have a different business model as a franchisee, but you're still in business to make a profit.
Yeah.
And that's the key.
No, that's awesome. I think that's a really great way to wrap up the podcast. And one of the things you said at the start is, you know, once you have the mindset, it's over. And I think that's just really powerful. You know, a lot of people struggling, you know, you have that mindset, you believe in yourself, really anything's possible. And another big takeaway that I had from you is just your curiosity. You know, I think that's a major lesson of just anyone successful in life, just that genuine curiosity and trying to ask questions and not being fearful. Just, you know, how did you get big arms? How did you get these abs? You know, not being scared, but just showing that genuine curiosity, I think goes such a long way. So, you know, episode.
It is, and something real funny about that. So remember I told you there was a trainer I worked at the gym, and I would question her all the time. Yeah. And when I put on Facebook I had awarded a franchise, she like commented like, I knew it. I knew you were going to do something. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was going to be big. So like, there shows you my curiosity fueled her passion to follow what I did in life. And now she's one of my cheerleaders.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's really powerful. And, you know, just going back to, you know, your friends got back together after 10 years. And I was talking about all these family friends that got together after a couple of years. You know, you just attract this positive energy. When you have that belief in yourself, you start to attract those similar people as well. So, you know, I think we learned a lot of gold today. Ricky, I appreciate you taking a full hour. You know, the founder of Nutrition HQ, you know, thank you, you know, United States Air Force as well. You know, I appreciate your service. I appreciate your time today. I had a great time. I think the viewers will learn a lot, and I'm excited to, you know, maybe do an episode 2 later on.
Do it. I appreciate the time today. I love doing this. I love talking about Nutrition HQ. I'm sorry, everybody, but I love it.
No, I love it. Like I said, Ricky, I'm going to put your YouTube link in the description as well. So if you're looking for more information on all things franchising as well, you know, Ricky and I are trying to lead the charge, intersecting franchising and social media. So, Ricky, I appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Josh.